We are live.
All right, boys and girls, Frauleins, welcome back to our second mini session of our campaign entitled "The Grasshopper Lies Heavy." It's loosely based on the novel and Amazon series "The Man in the High Castle," and we're going to be using the Genesys rule set in order to make this tale of make-believe come to light. One disclaimer, I don't know if I remember last time to say this, but please remember that even though if the characters say Hail Hitler in an in-character manner, just so they can maintain cover, we, the PCs, and certainly in real life, the players of this game, are on the good side of things. This game is about two things: having fun and killing Nazis. So without further ado, we will go ahead and start. And here's your handout. The year is 1959. It's been 12 years since the last remnants of the American rebel army was vanquished, and Adolf Hitler proclaimed VA Day, Victory in America. Since then, the U.S. population east of the Rocky Mountain Neutral Zone has sworn fealty to the GNR, the Greater Nazi Reich. A slow normalcy has crept back into life. The American way has endured, even if under Nazi leadership. Rock and roll lives mixed with propaganda. Schools swear allegiance to the Nazi flag. Elvis Presley has visited Berlin and knelt at the feet of the Fuhrer himself. The economy has slowly recovered, though Washington, D.C. remains a radiation-filled crater. We now find ourselves at 11 a.m. It is New York City, and Chandra Naidu stands dressed in the typical fashion one would dress in 1959 for a business meeting. He checks his watch amidst the hustle and bustle of LaGuardia Airport. The year is 1959, and this faux clerk has been told by a contact with a thick English accent, "Head on into the terminal at noon, my boy. Pack at least for a night or two. Tell your boss that you must attend, an ill friend. We'll arrange for your boss to comply in case there is any resistance. Once inside the airport, look for our man. You'll know him when you see him. If you don't pick up on the obvious, just look for the man to ask you for the time and then tell you that his watch was recently broken in a lover's quarrel." Then the contact continued. "I hope you aren't afraid of flying, Mr. Naidu. There's business that needs attended to in North Carolina. Our man will be flying you there, along with a pilot, on a privately owned airplane. Good luck." And as the scene opens, you are just inside the airport, kind of in the busy terminal area.
Inconspicuously in a corner by one of the pillars that holds up this massive building. It's been 6 months since he arrived to the States. It has been an experience, something Chandra's training could not have prepared him for. He is dressed well. He has a reputation to keep up. When people look at Chandra, it's not just Chandra they're also looking at an Indian who's clearly stands out in a very white populace. He carries himself with utter decorum. He's polite to everyone that walks by. He nods. Whenever anyone with authority looks at him, he clicks his heels and raises his hands in the salute. He does everything he can to not be noticed. As he checks his watch, it's close to noon, 11 a.m. He's waiting for his contact, and his eyes kind of glaze over and he's kind of thinking about his past. It has been an interesting journey to this point. Not very long ago, he was fighting for the freedom of his country. And at that point, that's all he could think about. A free India. That didn't turn out so well. And then the British went and lost the war. Well, shouldn't say just the British, the Americans as well. Wonder what that world would have been if they had won. Wonder if I would still be a second-class citizen, but under the British rule versus the Reich. Chandra looks up, looks at the people. Everyone walks around, huddled together. Heads not bowed completely, but the eyes are generally lowered. Everyone tries to keep to themselves and not bring too much attention. Doesn't matter what the place is, he says to himself. Doesn't matter the color of your skin, actually, also. When the boot is at your neck, whether you're white or brown, you will kneel. Or like a nail sticking out, they will hammer you in. Chandra straightens his back, shakes his head, bringing him to the present, and starts scanning the crowd, looking for someone that he should be meeting, someone that doesn't really stand out but has a different kind of look about them.
So as you search around the airport, you do see that most of the businessmen, and there aren't many businesswomen these days, but they kind of look at you and their eyes go away. They wouldn't want to be seen commingling with someone from, they would probably say, the Orient. And so they go on their way. And as you look around, you hear a female voice over the radio, nationally syndicated radio show, say, "That was just another hit. Now for all you lovers out there that don't have anyone, I bring you Lonesome Town," and some sad music starts. At that point, the camera pans over to the bar, where a man in a neat suit and tie and possibly a hat peeks out from behind a paper, looking across the terminal, searching for his contact. Okay, let's do our first dice roll, just for fun. So, Mr. Naidu, you are going to see if you see kind of Henry Winters looking at you from across the bar.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Henry Winters, this is going to be an opposed check. It's not going to really have much impact about what happens, but we're going to do it for fun just so we can learn. So when I look at Henry Winters, I'm going to say, so this would hold true for an NBC as well, right? So I'm going to say his stealth is 2 green, so 2 ability die, okay? Now, if that was an opposed check, that would translate to 2 purple. Make sense?
Okay.
So
When you said 2 ability dice, was that looking at a sheet?
I just looked at his sheet, yep.
Okay, so it would be 3 if it was 3 on a sheet, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, so 2 purples means a average check. So what you're going to do is you're going to roll your, what do you want? What do you want to do? Perception?
For Chandra, yes. Perception would be, I think, best.
Okay. So you're going to roll perception and you're going to choose average difficulty. And then when it gives you the option to add a setback dice, I'm going to add one. I want you to add 1 setback dice to represent the fact that Henry Winters is across the terminal at the bar, kind of trying to look inconspicuous.
Okay.
And let's ignore all the other options for now.
Okay.
So you can go down to the results, and you can see that you rolled your 3 ability die, okay, the 2 purple, and then the black. The black didn't end up having an effect at all, but everything else canceled out and left you one advantage. So it's a failure plus an advantage. What that means is basically, yeah, you did not notice that anybody was kind of trying to make you as a mark. On the other hand, what you did notice is a couple guards were eyeballing you a little suspiciously. So you know which ones to stay away from, but you didn't find your contact at all.
Okay.
And then the camera's going to pan over to Henry Winters. All right, now you can see, just the last teaching point, I've added that little blue token to your profile.
Uh-huh.
That's just reminding me that on your next check, I might want to give you a boost to kind of represent that advantage that you rolled.
Okay.
All right. So what's Henry Winters doing?
Henry Winters is reading his paper, kind of looking, smoking a cigarette, in one hand, and looking for his contact in the other, like he's reading the paper, but he's keeping an eye on the people. And so he keeps peering, thinking to himself, God, it's just, it'd be totally different. It should be totally different. Hitting the cigarette and just trying to fit in. Now, would he know anything about his contact? Would look for anything like that?
Yeah. If he's out there in the terminal, Indian guy dressed formally, you would be able to quickly spot him. So okay. I'm not going to make you roll for that.
Gotcha. So he kind of looks down at the paper and looking at, and he looks at his watch. I should be here by now. And this happens to look up and see I finally addressed the Indian guy. It's gotta be him, he thinks to himself. So he'll put a cigarette out in the ashtray, roll up his paper, stand up, a little bit stretched, kind of look around to see if anybody else notices, if he notices anybody trailing him or anybody watching out. Scratches his back to kind of feel where his sidearm is. And starts walking, not trying to make a beeline to him, but kind of moseying his own way over. Probably get up behind him a little bit and follow him for a little ways to kind of walk up next to him, And he gets closer and closer, kind of keeping an eye out. And so is Cypher is standing there? I mean, is that Mr. Naidu just standing there, or is he moving?
So based on the role, so while Naidu can't find what he's looking for, he also observes that there are eyes on him, and not to draw too much attention to himself, he is going to move around a bit. He's going to act like as if he's checking his watch. He's looking up at the board that shows incoming flights, and he kind of looks at his watch and he shakes his head, and then he kind of moves a little bit, but you can see him. His eyes are on the board. He's behaving like he's waiting for someone, but whoever it is very late.
Chandra can see that the two guards that cast a glance in his direction earlier, they have kind of gone back to checking the luggage of other passengers.
Okay. So Chandra would kind of move a little bit, but closer towards that board.
And so as Chandra just stops and looks at the board, Winters will kind of take this opportunity to move up next to him. Wonderful day we're having, huh?
Why, yes. It is a wonderful day.
Yeah, quite busy in the terminal, though. Seems such a waste for a nice day. Say, you wouldn't happen to know what time it is, would you?
Well, it's close to 11. But I must say, a fine, well-dressed gentleman like you doesn't have a watch of his own.
Yeah. Met a lady. She got a little upset. Next thing I know, my watch is in the toilet. Stopped working after that.
Yes, I have found women in this country can be quite feisty.
Oh, yes. So, but, as you can see, we're kind of pressed for time. I'm a little late.
Well, it looks like while your watch may not be telling you what the time it is, mine does, and I think I have met who I've come here to meet. The name's Chandra Naidu.
Chandra, name is Henry. I wish I could say it's a pleasure, but, well, we gotta go meet our friend over in the South Tarmac.
Indeed. Well, please lead the way and I will follow.
Excellent. You're not afraid of flying, are you?
Not many opportunities. It's something that I will... Well, how big is the plane?
Well, let's just say it's a private one, so not big.
When you say that, if you're looking at Chandra's face, you can see kind of like a... it's brown, but it does drop a few shades, going a little more pale.
Don't worry. It's less weight if it goes down, you know?
It is not the crashing that I fear, Mr. Winters. Let's just say I have been in confined spaces before. I do have side effects, but the task is important. I will do what I can to keep myself operational.
Well, that's understandable. I'll tell you what, when you get in that plane, you'll be able to see outside the windows of all of them. It'll look like you're just kind of floating in a glass cube. Maybe.
Yes, that, Mr. Winters, thank you for that. I think that'll be the lifeline. And you
But
can see Chandra's breathing has kind of gone up a couple of notches, and the calm demeanor is, it's not like completely, but there is like a slight quiver to the voice.
well, it's not a long flight, at least. I don't know how much I could tell you, but hopefully it's not that same confined space feeling you'd be getting from wherever you were.
Yes, where where I was before. Yeah, that. Yeah. Well, and he kind of Chandra kind of shakes his head and kind of clears his, mind. Sorry, Mr. Winters, I'm keeping you. Please lead the way. I will follow.
All right. Yeah, Dale'll start making his way. And he, as he's walking, he kind of thinks to himself and looks over at Chandra. I'll tell you what. And he hands him a newspaper. You can read this while you're up there. I read it twice already.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
I think
Don't.
that will keep my mind preoccupied. Yes. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, it's just right over here.
And Chandra will follow Henry.
So, as you kind of turn the corner and head back out into the hustle and bustle of this 1959 LaGuardia Airport, you feel almost an unreality. You guys are the insiders in this game. All around you are the sheeple that just they don't know what's going on. They walk with downcast eyes. They go through security checkpoints with a sweaty brow, just hoping that the GNR police don't find anything that's considered contraband by the Reich. Luckily, Henry Winters is relatively well connected. You make a few right turns. You enter a bar. Over top of it says Frequent Fliers Club. Out the back of the bar, there's a large window that stretches from the ceiling all the way down to the ground. And there's a glass door that leads outside with a ramp going down to the tarmac. Over this exit, you can kind of see it says, private flights only. And you head out that way. You go down the steps, and the wind whips your hair as the breeze coming off of the river in the bay kind of makes the hair fly into your face. Down waiting by the plane, you see someone dressed as a typical law enforcement officer of the American Reich, the Greater Nazi Reich. Although Henry Winters also likely knows this is their pilot, and he's likely in on the gig. As you approach the officer, looks up to Henry Winters and says, "Hey there, you're a few minutes late for your flight, sirs." And he kind of says, "I noticed you missed your watch. You're missing your watch. What happened to it, sir?"
Women got into a quarrel. First thing to go was my watch. Missed it.
Yes. Very well, I see. And it appears your friend here is who I am looking for as well. Are you all packed up and ready to go, sir?
Chandra, making sure that appearances are kept up, he nods his head, eyes downcast, bows a bit, clicks his heel. Shake Hill, Indeed, sir. I'm packed.
May I take your bag, sir? And you guys walk across the tarmac, and there's what looks like a kind of 1959 Cessna. It's one of the first ones. It's a 310B. It's kind of blue in color. And the pilot, which was going to be WP, but I didn't want to use a blue man token. So kind of starts to do a pre-flight check and get your luggages all squared away. But as that happens, from that ramp that you walk down on, you hear a couple voices. Stop, stop! Wait, wait! Lieutenant, Lieutenant! Oh, right.
Oh, hell.
The pilot kind of puts his head kind of out of the luggage compartment. And you can see two men running down the ramp. One of them's dressed as a normal police officer. The other one has a formal outfit on that you would really be quite aware of. He looks to be some sort of SS officer. They eventually reach down the plane. Both of them are out of breath. They act like nothing's kind of out of the ordinary. The police officer begins, and he's an American, so he says with an American accent, he says, "Oh, I'm so glad we caught you. You, the last flight headed down to North Carolina for the day, and we have a illustrious guest with us here. I introduced Standartensfuhrer Colonel Hans Alda. He will be joining you for today." And Colonel Alda stands forward, and he's very erect and proper, and he says, "I am also so glad that we caught you. I do know that it is a very long drive down to North Carolina, and I have such urgent business down there. Would you mind taking an Austrian that speaks very poor English with you on your journey?" Yes.
Chandra looks to both the pilot and at Henry.
Oh. Yes, it is a very long drive, ain't it? By all means, if you want the plane with us, you can. It might be a little bumpy, though. It's not the greatest plane.
Oh, that is quite okay. I've made it over here from Berlin, where I had my flight. The jets these days are very fast, but also very, very bumpy. Yes, I'm so glad. I do know that these planes are somewhat cramped as well, but I promise I will not be too intrusive at all. Thank you.
I'm sure you won't be, Colonel. Hey, Chandra, you got that paper you were going to give me? I need to read it on the flight.
Yes, Mr. Winters, certainly. And
you guys said something, I missed it.
Yes. Henry asked Chandra for the paper, and Chandra hesitates, but yes, Mr. Winters, here you go.
Thanks. I haven't read this. I need to catch up on the news.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. I'll give you. Have you read the sport? Have you ever read the funnies yet?
No, I'm not. That would be quite helpful.
All right. When we get on a plane, I'll give you the funnies.
Much obliged.
Colonel, I hope you got yourself some reading material.
Oh, yes, I've got a few documents I can read. It's a several-hour journey, I say. Hopefully we can have some pleasant conversation as well. And he looks to Chandra and says, "Well, I'd indeed like to talk to you about how you came here."
Certainly, Colonel. It's a short story, but I would definitely tell you if you'd like to know.
Excellent.
So, once we are airborne, I'm sure we will have plenty of time for forced and awkward conversation. Yeah.
That is true. Now, speaking of being on the plane, perhaps we ought to get going. I'm sure the lieutenant will handle your luggage.
Absolutely. And he reaches out to take the colonel's briefcase. He says, no. I will be keeping that with me. Confidential documents and all that. I hope you do not think I am rude. And the lieutenant backs off and holds his hands up. No, absolutely not. Standartensfuhrer. I'm just going to call him Colonel from now. Absolutely not, Colonel. But Mr. Winters here is correct. We are on the timeline, and I'm sure that all of our business in North Carolina cannot stand to wait much longer. And so he packs the bags and starts to go off and climbs into the cockpit to do the pre-flight checklist. And the policeman that brought the colonel over just kind of turns to him and clicks his heels, gives a salute. Heil Hitler! And the colonel looks to him. Heil Hitler! The police kind of walks away, and you get the kind of distinct impression that this policeman just wants to go back into the airport to do his security job. And it was much less stressful than being around this Austrian dude who's a little bit creepy. And eventually you can hear the airplane engine start. And you guys are ready to go if you'd like. Now, Chandra and Henry Winters, are you armed at all?
Oh, yeah, I'm armed. That's why I grabbed the newspaper.
Chandra would not be. He has a weapon, but he has kept it at home because, given social situations, he wishes not to be searched and found such weapons on him. And the propensity for someone like him to get searched is more common.
All right.
So,
I'm taking that off of your skill list then.
So eventually, Henry's gonna find a discreet way to transfer the gun to the newspaper, so that way you can have it ready in case.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, and we'll move on to our next slide. You guys should be able to see that cockpit okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of 4 seats here. There's kind of 2 in the back. There's there's actually kind of 4 in the back. There's 2 more behind these that you can see, and there's a co-pilot seat. The colonel would take 1 in the back, and you guys can sit wherever you'd like.
Chandra, given who he is, he's going to sit at the back like a passenger and not, draw any attention that the flight is actually for him.
Okay. So I'm going to sit in front.
So you guys get into the airplane, and the colonel fastens his seatbelt. He doesn't even take off his leather jacket. He has a cap that has a death's head insignia on it, and he politely does take his cap off and tuck it under his left arm as he buckles his seatbelt. Don't want to be incautious now, would we? Haha.
Not at all.
As the plane kind of rolls down the runway and starts to take off, Colonel Alda will just say, kind of tap the pilot on the shoulder, "Hey, I do certainly hope your pilot skills are more, shall we say, competent than mine English. Yeah? Absolutely, Colonel. I've flown quite a bit. Quite a bit. Ah, the colonel sits back and realizes that the pilot, since he's American, probably flew back in the day against the Reich. But now that the Americans are a conquered people, the colonel doesn't rub it in too much.
So, Colonel, what do we? Is this a business or pleasure trip?
Oh, it's business. If it was pleasure, I do not think that I would leave New York City. What a magnificent place of lights. It almost reaches the glory of Berlin, you know?
Yeah, each have their own unique looks about them. Have you been anywhere else in the States, or have you just been in New York?
I have been to the States from time to time, searching for people here and there.
So what other interesting places have you been to?
I've been to the places that I would say are fairly unmentionable. Searching out the, shall we call them pests, that still gnaw at your society like termites. That is my specialty, you'd say, yes?
Now we're thankful for that.
Aha, yes.
Didn't get to do much sightseeing while you were out?
You know what they say about us Austrians, all business, all the time, except when we are with a glass of wine.
I can understand that.
Why don't you make me an average knowledge check with a boost die, Henry Winters, to see if you can figure out anything about the colonel from his hat and his ranks and insignias that he's wearing.
No setbacks?
No, you get a boost, given your experience. So, success and 2 advantage, Henry Winters. So you do indeed know, looking at the colonel, that he is one of the SS officers who is in charge of tracking down enemies of the state. Basically, this is either spies that spy against the Reich, or Jewish survivors, or other Untermenschen or useless eaters. And what would you like to do with those 2 advantages?
Would I be able to bank them and use them as future use in this? I guess would be this arc, not
social encounter. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, not the whole shebang, but. Because I'm thinking I'm gonna need to bank them and use them.
So yeah, you know that he's, you can see the Death's Head insignia. You can see some of the headlines on the documents that he takes out of his briefcase and he starts to look through. And the colonel says, no, but enough about me. I would like to know more about you, and you in particular. It is not so often that we find someone from the Orient over here in the States. What is your story?
Colonel, it's a plain, simple story. Nothing much to talk about. I am by birth an Indian, and I recently came here to the States as a clerk. A lot of my countrymen are trained in the different codes and rules of the Reich, and we help the populace to follow those rules, make sure that forms are filled correctly in triplicate, and everything is in order. Yes, that's why I'm here.
Yes, yes. Without the rules and without the respect for law, it would be anarchy. It would be no better than the Jews, no?
Yes, Colonel. Anarchy indeed.
And as you speak, Chandra, the colonel's digging into you with a cold gaze that's both precise and unnerving. And he's trying to sense if there's more to you than meets the eye. So, what we're going to do is we're going to do an opposed check between the colonel and yourself. Okay. Now you are trying to deceive him. You're telling him a partial truth, but would you agree in the core it's a deception?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, it's going to be versus your deception. So the difficulty for the colonel is going to be. So I look down at your deception. I look on skills.
Deception should be a 2 with a level. I mean, it has a level 1.
Yep. Rank 1. So that translates to him as 2 purple and 1 red. Okay?
Okay.
The way you would construct the dice pool is you would say hard difficulty, upgrade the difficulty once. That turns it into a red. Make sense?
Okay.
Now, he also has a trait called Adversary 1. So he's going to also get a boost die on this check.
Okay.
Now, do you want to use your boost to give him a setback?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. So I'm going to clear that off. And he's going to look at you and figure out what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and make my roll. It's going to be perception on his part. Like I said, it's going to be a hard difficulty. 1 boost die on him. 1 setback that you give him. And then I'm going to upgrade my difficulty once. And you'll see how this rolls out. So here's where the storytelling dice kind of really come into handy. You see that he failed the check, but he has 4 advantages. You can do some pretty amazing things with these 4 advantages, okay? So, just as another teaching point, if you look under help, Genesys help, and then social,
Uh-huh.
see how it says like spinning advantage and triumph, spinning threat and despair? That kind of gives you an idea. You can always ask the GM to do something cool, but this is kind of an idea what you can do with them. So I'm going to use my 4 advantages this way. I'm going to use 3 of them to learn desire or fear of the targeted character. So what do you fear?
Okay. So the fear is, it says expression. And the way I'm playing it is my incarceration during the fight against the British for freedom. I was placed in a special cell that you could only kneel, you couldn't sleep or stand up, and there was basically kind of water that would sewage water that would stop you from sleeping, and it was extremely cramped, so you could never stand up. So your face was always a few inches above that water, and it was solitary. So the fear of that led to the fear of like claustrophobia, confined spaces.
Excellent. So how I would RP that is the colonel doesn't necessarily sense that Chandra is lying to him, but the colonel is also very adept at noticing suffering in people, and he's the type of person that likes to cause people to suffer from time to time, especially if it's in the glory of the Fuhrer. So he's going to use the 4th advantage to give himself a boost next turn, but then also he notices that Chandra seems a little bit uncomfortable on the plane. Are you okay? I know that it must have been a very long flight over from India, Chandra. You look a little uncomfortable.
Yes, Colonel. The flight. I must say, the the airlines do a good job to keep it as pleasant. This plane is a little smaller than that one, and it's bringing about uh, an effect on me. Feels a little cramped, but the windows do help. The blue sky, yeah, looking at the horizon. Yes, it does help.
Ah. So, you are a clerk of some sort? A rule maker? A bureaucrat?
Yes, uh, I do not make the rules. I let the wisdom of the Reich guide me in that manner. But yes, I do help ensure that it is followed the way it's supposed to be followed. Yes, a bureaucrat.
Yes, yes, I agree. Your kind is often best utilized for the will of the Reich in menial positions and task force that do not require high-level abstracted thinking. I'm just wondering, though, Mr. Naidu, why is it that you are flying to North Carolina and you are not behind a desk? Ah,
Yes. Well, I do have a friend in North Carolina that has taken ill. I do wish to go see him.
hmm. And again, he looks at you deeply, and he starts to say something, but then bites his tongue. What about you, co-pilot? What business do you have, as they call it in the Tar Heel State?
Yeah, I got a cousin down there who fell ill. I gotta go check on the family. So it's not a pleasure trip.
Ah, so it is some sort of plague down there in North Carolina. So many ill people. Yeah.
Uh, I hope not, because we're about to pay parking there soon enough.
The lieutenant that's flying the plane kind of looks in one of the mirror up at the colonel and then glances away nervously. And so the colonel wants to see if you're lying, Mr. Winters. So what is your deception?
I don't know, but would I be able to press my advantage now?
You will be. So
Right.
you could use those to give him 2 setback die if you'd like.
That's an affirmative.
Okay.
And look what my deception now, and it is gonna be. Is it deception? Is that what it's called?
Yep, it's under social. Yep, it's going to be three greens.
Ah, there it is. Yep. Well, ain't too bad.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend my story point to upgrade my check 1 time. So this is a good time to discuss how story points work. If you open up your character sheets, Cypher and Sim,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to see a story point pool. Hit sync with GM. And at the beginning of each session, the GM gets 1 point and all the players get 1. And it goes into a pool, okay? And you can look at the rule book later, but you can use the story points for a lot of cool stuff to push the narrative forward, back, to give yourself mechanical advantages or whatnot. I'm going to spend mine, okay? So you're going to see that I use story point. And that's going to allow me to upgrade my check once. I really want to know if Henry Winters is lying to me. So, using all my dice, I'm going to assemble my pool. All right. So, perception. It's going to be hard. I'm going to give myself 2 boost die. Using my boost.
Don't forget about the setback.
Yep. 2 setbacks. I'm going to upgrade my proficiency once because I used that story point. And there we go. Ooh. This is not good for you guys. That was a very, very good roll.
We crashing the plane, boys.
That's the sweet thing about this system. It's unpredictable. Unpredictable. So the Colonel kind of looks at Henry and looks up to the police lieutenant that glanced over at him and over at Chandra. I just do seem to find it just extremely odd that the lieutenant would drive an Indian and a businessman to North Carolina from New York City to visit sick and ill friends. Just extremely odd to me. And I just do know that that area has a lot of, shall we say, criminal activity going on. So, please, you do know that honesty is always the best policy. Mr. Winters, would you please tell me why you're going to North Carolina? I do not want to have to get the authorities involved.
Well, it's quite simple, really. It just so happened I met a dame. She's pretty affluent. She's paying for the trip for me to go. I happen to know Chandra, offered him the ride. And we really don't want the husband to find out. You gotta understand the need to be discreet, can't you, Colonel?
9. No, I do not know. 999! And from under his coat, you see a Luger's barrel kind of sneak out of it with his left hand. He presses it into Chandra's ribs. Do you know what they call me back home? They call me the Jew Hunter. I think that both of you are lying to me. Whether it is Providence or some other will of the Fuhrer that brought me here. For some reason, I think that you have something to do with the reason I'm going to North Carolina. Now, Lieutenant, if you would be so kind to land this plane, I'm going to escort these men and yourself to the closest office branch of the GNR police. Do you understand, Lieutenant? Hell, Hitler. Just kind of says under his breath and looks at the controls of the plane. The Colonel kind of jams the pistol into Chandra's ribs.
Ah, Colonel. There's no need for that. And, like you said, my people, are we not just menial tasks to people who can just do menial tasks? Where would I be important enough to be involved in the things you have said? And furthermore, I'm a Hindu, sir. I'm not a Jew.
So, you may not be a Jew, but you are no better than them. Just stop talking. You're just digging yourself into a deeper hole. Now, Mr. Winters, if you'll be so kind to hold up the paper, I would like to read the funnies while we fly the rest of our way to North Carolina.
You want me to hand you the funnies? Is that what you want?
You can hold them up and read them to me. Like I said, my English is not so good.
Well, how are you gonna see the pictures?
Hold up the paper!
Oh, sure thing. And he's gonna wrestle with the paper and he's gonna turn. You want me to hold it in front of you like this, and kind of hold the paper with one hand, and you kind of turn the seat a little bit so you can see the funnies and read them to you. What would you like?
That should be fine. We have to do something to pass the time. I'm sure that Mr. Naidu here is indisposed. Please do not soil yourself, sir.
Well, there's a problem with that, though, as I can't see the words to read them to you. So you want me to read it to you, then hold it up?
Do I have to explain everything to you?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what your comfort level with hearing and reading comics.
So what are you doing, RP-wise?
Realistically, he's got his pistol on his lap now, and he's got the paper up with one hand, and he's
Awesome.
he's just kind of, trying to play the idiot in a way with the comics. That way he's got his other hand on the pistol, so he's trying to. I guess it'd be like. I mean, because I don't know how obvious it would have been that the gun was in the pistol to him in the first place. I mean, the pistol was in the paper, So now
you have the paper kind of up. I think you can do whatever you want with your right hand. You can't really see it.
All right, because I'm just waiting for an opportunity to let his guard down. If I have to, I'll shoot him. But okay. I don't want to get Chandra shot in the process. So
Chandra, realizing, he's playing the fool, but he realizes exactly what Winters is doing. He looks at the colonel and he locks eyes with him. It is interesting, Colonel, that you are a Jew hunter, but this plane has no Jews, and you believe all the three of us are compatriots. That is odd, do you not think, Colonel? Are your mental faculties failing? Maybe your kind is not as supreme as you think it is. I wonder. And this is purely to kind of egg him on.
Yeah, and we're still holding the paper up. Yeah. Did I ever tell you I can't read that good? I am from South Carolina,
So just since this is a learning game, what Henry Winters said in chat is actually a really good idea and a really cool use of story point. Okay, so all 3 story points are now in your court. Doing something like that, having the pilot kind of do a quick roll to the left, kind of causing the colonel to shift over in his seat and lose balance for a second, is an excellent use of a story point, and I would let you guys do that.
Huh. So would that be for me to get his attention to do it, or would that be for him to pull off with recourse?
Whatever you want. You could just kind of distract him or momentarily break his attention from Chandra.
Okay.
And you can RP that and tell me how it looks.
Right,
so the way you spend that story point is you just, in your sheet, there should be a button that says use player story point. Just click that.
Gotcha.
But it also puts one back in my court.
So as he holding the paper and talking to the Jew hunter about not being able to read that good because the South's pretty uneducated, and the same time he's gonna, with his other hand that's holding the pistol, he's gonna poke the lieutenant with it. You know, to get his attention. You know, to see if the two minds can link up that he's about to shoot the colonel, but needs something going on.
The lieutenant looks down and gives a little bit of the movie nod, the slight nod.
Okay. So then he, all right, Colonel, here, you see that guy right there? It looks like he's trying to light a fire in his fire pit, and he's got what is that? He pulls the paper back, look at it. Oh, lighter fluid, and he holds it back up. This time the pistol's gonna be behind the paper, so he can't see it. The paper's like in front of the gun.
Mm-hmm. So do you want him to do that little barrel thing to distract him, or no?
Yes.
Yeah. So as you do that, like the lieutenant just goes like takes the not the throttle, the yoke, and like banks at the port hard, and the colonel's what are you doing? It's kind of, the gun comes off of Chandra's ribs, and momentarily kind of loses its balance. His papers kind of all spill onto the floor, and the lieutenant's like, "Oh, sorry, it's turbulence," and that happens. And what's Chandra doing?
I'm not sure if you guys heard my previous RP, but I guess it doesn't matter. As soon as Chandra sees that opening and the gun is moved away from him, he is going to jump on the colonel and try and wrestle that gun away.
Excellent, and he's distracted too. So tell me how that looks like, and we'll figure out the type of roll for that.
Yeah. So as soon as the roll happens and he kind of takes his eyes off to look at the pilot, and the gun comes off Chandra's rib cage, Chandra's just going to leap at him and pull the gun away from him.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to give you a boost. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to downgrade the difficulty once, since he's kind of off balance. Okay. And then another, just kind of learning thing, again, this would be another time to use a story point, because that would upgrade your check once. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but which check am I using? Like, is it melee?
So you would probably want to use brawl, since it's unarmed.
Okay, brawl. So brawl, the difficulty is average, you said?
Average.
Okay. And the boost, you're giving
Boost
me a
one.
boost 1. Okay. No setback or some setback?
Yeah, sorry that my Discord's shitting on. No setback.
Okay.
And then there should be one that says upgrade your attack once.
Okay, upgrade proficiency. Okay, 1.
And I think that's it.
Okay.
And
then
spend your story point.
Yes, and I'm going to spend the story point to. It's mainly just to kind of, in that moment where he's distracted and the gun is off, also to kind of use my my full body and force. Like, he's been toying with us, and now it's just we played the meek lambs enough. No, Colonel. Clearly, your hunting is not as good as you think it is. No Jews here, but a dose that should make you wish you had stayed in Berlin and not made this trip.
Oh, nice. So you grab on top of the colonel, boom, grab him. You can't the threat. I'm using that gun. That gun does not go into your control. It clatters across the floor. Okay. But you have control of the colonel. You kind of have him like with his hand like pinned behind his back. Ha! Get off of me, Utarmenchen! And then the gun clatters down to the ground, and I'm gonna roll a d6, and if it's a 6, it's gonna go off.
Okay.
Nope. Clatters to the ground and slides up kind of underneath the seat of the pilot. And he starts to kind of descend. He's like, what the hell is going on?
Where exactly are we, pilot?
He looks down over his instruments. It says, looks like we're over West Virginia. We'll be to Raleigh in about an hour.
What is below us? Chandra looks out of the window. What is below us?
It's just green mountains. Just Appalachia, basically.
It's all West Virginia.
Yes, West Virginia.
Chandra at this point looks at Henry and he says, Mr. Winters, I believe this flight has way too much baggage. We need to lighten it.
No! Oh, no!
As he pointing the gun at the colonel, too. You know, I would tend to agree with that. What do you think?
Pilot speaks. So what are you talking about? You're not talking about what I think you're talking about.
Well, we can't really let them go running off once we land, right?
And then he just kind of looks at his controls and he says, 9.
So, Colonel Jew Hunter, how's it feel to be a Nazi right now?
How does it feel to be vermin?
Well, it seems you hit the rat trap, not us.
Kind of twists and turns and spits in Chandra's face. Untermenschen! Do with me what you will. I serve the Reich. You will not get away with this. I'm very important. They will notice me missing. You will be hunted down like the rats you are and killed in a sewer. And everybody will forget about you. You are nothing.
Well, seems to me you're banking on that one officer that came with you to remember everything about us. Seems like he was pretty eager to get away from you.
The Americans are frightful people. Yes. Just like you do not have what they say, the balls to do away with me. Because you know what will await you once you land this plane. His arms are behind him, but he does his best to look stately and fearless.
Now, do we have anything that would be able to secure his arms behind him? Because it's going to be quite a struggle moving him towards the door, I imagine.
Yeah, I imagine they can use a seatbelt. There's a lot of stuff she could use, probably.
Okay. Well, Chandra, if you could grab something back there to secure him up, we can stop this plane from being too heavy.
Well, Mr. Winters, my hands are tied up, keeping this man's hands tied up. If you'd be so kind as to get me something to tie his hands with, I would most gladly open the door and see if this Aryan can fly.
Alright, that's a pretty small aircraft. I imagine maybe I could crawl over top of some seats. Or, you know what? I don't think I have a knife on me, do I?
Well, it's two of us and there's one of him, so we both can hold him, open the door and throw him out. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
So, to do another roll for learning purposes, I want to see how the colonel is reacting to this. So another time we might use a check is a discipline check. Okay, and I'll explain to you the consequences of this. So, discipline. So discipline. I'm going to say it's going to be a daunting check. Okay, very hard. And I'm gonna give him a setback because you guys are on top of him and talking about throwing him out of the fucking plane. Okay. And let's see what he does. Failure. Okay. So what you can start to do with these social checks is chip away at someone's strain. Strain is like the mental equivalent of hit points or health or wounds. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So there are talents that can like make you deal a lot of strain, like a verbal attack and stuff like that. But in this instance, he loses. If he failed the check, okay. But if, for example, if he failed multiple times, he would get lose more strain. He had a single failure, so he just loses one strain. Actually, it's not bad for how hard of a check that was, and his discipline's really good. You can see that he has a proficiency of 2 in it. So, so you can see that the colonel's eyes starts to go a little bit wide, and sweat breaks out across his brow. It's starting to dawn on him that you guys might be fucking serious, and so he stops the trash talk at this point.
Colonel, I may be an Untermensch, as you say, but even I know that leaving Berlin is not the choicest of assignments. Making your way down to the Carolinas, I don't think it's a choicey assignment. I may be wrong. So that makes me wonder, will anyone really miss you? After all, this is a big country. Very easy to get lost.
And the colonel starts to make a snide remark. Then he just looks back down at the floor. If you are going to do this thing, this cowardly thing, I suggest you get on with it. Valhalla awaits.
Mr. Winters, I think he wants to go meet his god.
Well, let's arrange a meeting then.
And I believe I don't want to stand away in between him and his god. No, it's not my place. Shall we?
We shall. And with that, he's gonna help grab Colonel Hans, muscle him to a door. I don't know where the door is at in this plane.
So there's the back hatch of it kind of comes down. Say kind of like under here. It's like a hatch that you can undo, and you push him that way, and like there's a release that you can pull on with your left hand. And as you do that, just hear, and all you can hear at this point is the plane engine.
And Chandra starts moving the colonel forward in step with Henry Winters.
The sound gets really loud as you just hear the wind rushing by. At this point, the colonel starts to, so please don't do this. You do not have to do this.
But Colonel, you leave us no choice. Didn't your mother tell you not to go poking into other people's business?
Yeah. And I kind of believe what my old lieutenant told me many years ago. Lieutenant Rains, he said there ain't no good Nazi but a dead Nazi.
Ah, Mr. Winters, that's excellent. And at this point, everybody's screaming at each other, but...
Yeah. No, please don't do this. I have no wife or children, but my dear elderly mother, oh, she will miss her boy Hans so much.
Shall we, Mr. Winters?
We shall. I'll be sure to send a telegram telling her how you probably peed and crapped yourself on your way down. Hope you enjoy your flight.
Bombs away, as they say. And with that, Chandra is going to basically heave ho the colonel out of the plane.
And you see him fly out of the plane. And as he flies out of the plane, you see him slowly disappear, and his voice trails off as he plummets, and the black speck disappears among the hills of West Virginia.
And with that, Henry will do the latch to get the hatch back to close.
Chandra will make his way back to the seat, silent and somber. His eyes look down to the ground. He picks up the Luger, then his eyes catch all the paperwork that's all over the place, and he picks it all up and starts going through them. Mr. Winters, pilot, we need to come up with a story.
Well, Lieutenant, how good are you crash landings?
Crash landings? What the hell are you talking about?
Well, if a plane disappears with a colonel on it, it'll be pretty far away from him. They'll stop looking. They won't look for us.
As that happens, you guys start talking about what to do next and where to land the plane and that sort of thing. The camera starts to slowly pan out from the airplane and across the clouds over the Appalachian Mountains over towards the ocean. And then the camera goes blank.
Throw him off the plane, the lifer says.
Yeah. What's with first sessions of the Cypher? Throwing people out of planes. Alright.
Oh.
Gosh.
Oh god, this is supposed to be a short introductory session.
Hour and 18 minutes.
No, it's not the length of the session, it's what happened. What happened in the session.
Good session.
Ooh.
Lifer's a cold-blooded killer.
Good.
Yeah, he is.
That could have gone a bunch of ways. If you would have missed that, I mean, he could have just like fired a shot off into your gut. I mean, it could have gone bad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
and it'd be like a Reservoir Dog scenario. You're in the back bleeding.
Take me to a hospital. Take me to a hospital.
And it was all because of that Triumph he rolled.
Yeah. Oof.
Well, I was gonna best out there are a few things wrong with fighting in an airplane. Number one being fighting in the airplane.
Chandra he's built to be inconspicuous, but he's been through some bad shit. So and actually, so I realized this after. Is there any advantages to kind of following the characters, flaw, like, kind of reckless to just throw him out like that, but at the same.
That's RP.
Okay.
But what I will do, I mean, if you let me know, because it's gonna be hard to memorize everybody. Hey, this is in character. I'll give you a boost or something. I'll throw a little bone your way.
Okay. Yeah. So that whole fear thing is kind of based on the backstory of being in that prison. So.
I was wondering how you got that. I was like, what do you do? Get over here in a shipping container or what?
It was a brutal fucking 14-hour flight.
Wow. Well, you just unleashed your anger on this dude.
Yeah. Fly, bitch.
I was like, I didn't know how it's going to be. I thought I was like, well, it might be that just everybody wears down the strain a little bit. It's an odd plane, but you land, everybody goes their own ways, but maybe they're suspicious of each other. It could be that he figures it out. It could be that a gunfight breaks out. It could be anything that happens on this horrible plane trip.
Yeah, with that triumph or with the way he rolled, it is pretty clear that he has in his sights. So
He had a lot more information at his disposal than he was letting on.
yeah,
Yeah, almost like he was meant to be there.
Yeah. He's going down to get involved in a situation that you're going to be involved in a few days. So.
So, but we do have all this whatever paperwork is on the plane. We now have it.
So that's great fodder for the campaign going forward, actually, because that guy he's not a huge big dog, but he's a fairly big dog.
Yeah. This was the token accurate? Oh wait, let me pause the video. Stop recording.